Hello everybody, Demonr here. Just finished doing a review of Fluffy Planet's race. Very interesting. Lewis has given permission for me to review his race. So that's what I'm going to be doing on this particular video. Excuse me. Now Lewis has been, I believe, one of my YouTube viewers for a while, and has just joined the DGT leagues, and because it's his first race, he's starting from the back, with it being a reverse championship order grid start. So it'll be interesting to see how Lewis gets on here. I mean, to be honest, when I'm watching people, it doesn't, like when I've been helping people out, it doesn't take long to see where there might be things that I can perhaps do to or advice I can give to help people out, not necessarily just perhaps get better, but to perhaps enjoy their racing more. Because for me, that's actually the more important bit. I mean, okay, well, let's put it this way, right? Jason has a brilliant race in this one, but I bet you did find it a bit boring. Yes, it's amazing. He drove brilliantly. He fully deserved the win. But I know me personally, I prefer a battle, and I'd be happy with a battle for 10th as long as it's a good battle, rather than a lonesome drive for a win. The battle is more fun. So I'm definitely interested to see what goes on with Lewis's racing. I will get going in a moment. I just want to get my YouTube up. So yeah, it is going to be interesting to see. Now, for drivers, new drivers into the DGT League, there's probably no practice you could do that could prepare you for the pack in DGT. It is something special. Is one way to put it. Okay, so anyway, we're going to have a look at Lewis and see how he gets on. Now, what I will say is I've no idea. Well, that's not true. I have a bit of an idea. I have seen a bit of Lewis's live stream, not a lot of it, just a couple of bits of it. So what I will say is anything I may or may not say here, don't take anything personally, don't take anything as a dig. If I happen to say something, obviously some stuff is obviously just my opinion, but yeah, if I say something that you disagree with, what I would say is don't take it personally. Okay, so let's get going. Lewis's first race in DGT, running traction control, which is fine. I mean, these cars, to be fair, are pretty good without traction control. Now I think Lewis is on a pad. A decent start. Showing some caution, yeah. Okay, all good so far. Ooh. I don't know if that was Mandalorian squeezing him. I think that was definitely Mandalorian saying you don't want to come round there, mate. What I will say is, okay, at this point it looks like there's room. At this point it looks like there's room, but I'd be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 5 cars to the right. Yeah, be careful here. So Mandalorian moving across a little bit. I don't know if there was contact. You could say a little naughty, but at the same time, he's actually helped Lewis there, because he's basically saying, look, don't. If you put your car over there, you're going to end up in trouble. Okay, showing caution again round here, which is good. I think Mandalorian, is he going? I don't think Mandalorian's going for the overtake. I think he might be looking at going defensive. So Lewis managed to navigate the hairpin quite nicely. Obviously, he's compromised his speed, but he's keeping himself out of trouble at the moment. Now this could get interesting. A lot of cars ahead of him. The road's going to narrow. Brakes early. Nice. Ooh, turns in a bit soon, but it's not a problem. Oh, he's not gone down enough gears. Now, I'm pretty sure that he was new to manual gears in this race. So I think he didn't go down enough gears. I mean, a bit of a risky overtake going up the outside there, but it is the racing line, so he has got more grip. So can't fault him for putting his car in this position, but I just think he didn't go down the gears. Let's see. Yeah, needed second. So runs a little wide. Oh, a lot of carnage. Oh. You know, I don't think there's a lot he could have done there. Looking at it, I mean, okay, he's ran wide, but it's helped him avoid the main bit of carnage there. And you know what? He's in a situation where he can't actually move to the right more. Now, Mandalorian can't move because he's got Fluffy Planet next to him. Fluffy Planet can't move because he's got SGP next to him. And SGP can't move because Demonr's next to him. So Lewis is massively unlucky. The only way he could save himself here is with a lift. But I could imagine if he was on bumper view, like if this is all he could see, then I could, yeah, you're not going to see all of the cars on the right hand side. So I could understand him thinking he may feel that he should be given a bit more space there. But when you look at it in its fullarity, there's no possibility of those cars moving over. Sadly, that means Lewis hits the barrier and around he goes. I mean, I say there really isn't a lot he could have done there other than try and slow down, but not easy to do in that situation. Really not easy to do. I think most people in that situation would actually have tried moving right a bit, and to be fair to him, he didn't do that. Oh, because there was a car there. That was a bit of contact though. What happened there? Oh, it looked like SRI sort of went straight on then. Okay, that was odd. Okay, so a very rough start for Lewis then. Okay, I kind of feel for the guy at this moment in time, because it's still the first lap of the race. He's quite a way behind. He's been involved in 2 crashes. First one, not a lot he could do. That second one, I don't think there was a lot he could have done there either. So let's see if how his head is while SRI is all over the back of him. SRI up the inside. Braking a little late there, bit after the 100. Manages to survive it just. Okay, nice move, nice re-overtake. Yeah, you can tell he's on a pad with the sort of slight twitchiness of the car here. Interesting, bit middle of the road there. Didn't need to defend, so could have done with using all of the road on entry to the corner, or like into the braking zone. Okay, SRI's too far back. I mean, he's controlled at this moment in time. Okay, brake to the right point for that corner. Perhaps not used to the manual gears. Could have done with going down them a little quicker there. Don't want to go down them too fast, but you can go down them a little quicker. It helps with the braking. Decent braking point. You know what? Doing something interesting there. Something that I worked on with Gary a lot and Twilight actually, was making a corner tighter for yourself when no one else is around. So, for example, what Gary used to do was he'd be in the right position on the racing line, he'd get to the braking point, he'd apply the brakes, and then he'd start moving towards the apex, right? Whereas what he should have been doing is hitting the brakes, continuing in a straight line, and turning in later, which opens up the corner and allows you to enter the corner much quicker. So if you watch here, what Lewis does is moves over to the racing line, and as he applies the brakes, I'll just pause it here. Okay, so he's in the right position here, but as he's now applied the brakes, he should be continuing straight on, sort of towards, let's see, I mean there's some arrows on the road and a white line going straight down the middle of the road, where I would say it almost looks like the end of the white line in the middle of the road, so he should be staying straight until about that point and then coming in, but watch as he drifts over. So that white line, as that white line ends, ideally Lewis should have his car on the racing line, a car width to the right, and that'll allow him to take this corner faster. Other factor is if SRI is still right up his gearbox and is defending, then fair enough, which he kind of is, so fair enough. But I would say be careful of doing that, because I know with Gary and a couple of others, they didn't realise that they were actually doing that and making corners tighter for themselves. So yeah, he's definitely defending. SRI carrying a lot more speed through the corner. Interesting one. Now, obviously, with me just doing a review on on Fluffy's footage, and having seen what he was doing into these corners, this is quite interesting, because with Lewis, you could say that as they get to the 150 metre marker point, the overtake could be on, right? He could possibly go for this. But experience would tell me that if he does, he's going to go through the corner slower. So he'd be better applying pressure to the car ahead and making them slower through the corner. But that's just my opinion. As we get to the 100 metre marker board, now is at this point, when it comes to applying the brakes, is he alongside? Okay, SRI is on the brakes a bit after the 100, which I've already mentioned may be a little late. And Lewis is on the brakes and he's on them hard. And he's had to stay on them hard. Now, SRI coming across as he has, I've got to say... excuse me. I've got to say, I would say that... what SRI did here, there's nothing wrong with it. Because the way that I view it is, if at the start of the braking point, i.e. here, if the car behind is not anywhere up alongside, then the car ahead legitimately can go for the apex of the corner. If the car behind has better braking ability or better driver ability, and the driver is able to safely and fully under control, i.e. get into the apex, giving plenty of room to the other driver and not under steering, then they can go for the corner. So yes, at this point they're side by side, but Lewis has had to go a lot slower to keep the corner. I mean, SRI has squeezed him a bit there, but I think I would say that that is just about fair enough. So from that one move there, what I would perhaps say already is with Lewis, okay, he's attempted to move up the inside into that final corner, it's not quite worked. That would instantly tell me as a driver, right, dummy that and get a fastest exit from the racing line. So he tried it, not quite worked, but we'll see how we get on. Taking the tighter entry into these corners, but it makes you wide here a little bit. Yeah, lose a bit of time and speed. I know it's not easy to do gradual steering on a pad. Oh, that's a late one. I think he realised it and managed to recover it. That was a good recovery, to be fair. It was a bit of a late move and it wasn't quite on, but good driving to recover it. He's definitely got quite twitchy steering because of being on a pad. I know you can turn the... Oh, that's going to go a little deep unless he's hard on the brakes, which he has to be. Oh, you know what? That's unlucky, that is. That is unlucky. You know what? I'd be interested to know what view Lewis uses actually, because if he uses this view, the front bumper view, it's not easy to tell exactly where the front of your car is or the front corners of your car is. So he may have felt like he was missing the barrier, but unfortunately not to be. I might have a look at that at some point. I know SGP uses the bumper view, and Hulkenberg, Mandalorian has used it before. And one thing the Mandalorian and SGP have sort of said is if you're using the bumper view, the top of the rev counter, if you treat that as sort of how far forward your car actually extends, that helps you from hitting the back of cars. But the width I've never really looked at. Maybe that's something I can have a look at later on today. So yeah, a couple of laps in and a bit of a rough start for Lewis. I mean, he's been doing some good driving and he's been under control for the most part. Now what I haven't, obviously we've not seen him sort of fully in at the pack yet, but being on his own on the track at the moment does give a good opportunity to see what his norm would technically be. Braked a little after the 100, meant he's had to go down to third. See, that's where braking a little earlier and gentler allows you to take that corner in fourth, and you can take it much faster. Alright, SGP says the width is about the edges of the dials on bonnet view. Interesting. Okay, so he hasn't got a car around him. Now I mentioned earlier on about getting to a braking point and then like once you get to the braking point working towards an apex. He does that here. So if you look at this on the racing line, on the brakes, and I would say starts turning in a little too soon. Could have done with carrying on a little bit further, because turning in that little bit sooner means he has to stay on the brakes a little bit longer to get it slowed down because the corner's tighter. So he's on the brakes all the way to the apex, which has meant that he's had to go down to second gear. See, so it is one of the big benefits of braking. That little bit earlier you can brake a lot less, which allows you to actually go faster. Interesting, using brake and throttle at the same time, which can be done on a point. You can do it on a wheel as well. Avoids the wall massively this time. He's learnt his lesson there. I mean, he's not braking too late in that corner. It's nice and calm, collected. Okay. Using second gear through that corner, can use third through there. Or I was using third a lot. Okay, I'm just going to stop this here for a second. I know I've been stopping it a lot, but one of the reasons I'm stopping this here is because as a driver, looking at what is ahead, it almost looks like it's 5 wide, right? On approach to this, I would already be thinking, right, one at a time. Unless the opportunity arises, the right opportunity arises, let's not get too involved in this because it won't end well. A little bit late on the brakes, running wide. Okay, SRI going for the pits, is he? Yep, and Lewis going for the pits. Okay. So Lewis's tyre wear not too bad. It may feel like he's not got a lot of grip, but a couple of spins in there. Excuse me. A couple of spins in there is going to make the tyres feel like they haven't got a lot of grip. Interesting thing so far is that with the incidents that he's been involved in, he's still avoided the pack so far. So he's not quite experienced that fully yet. It does look like Lewis has got a good sense of where the racing lines are, but he is making curious moves, a little bit like Fluffy and Gary were in the last corner. Sort of instead of using the racing line, sort of compromising the entry a little bit like this, perhaps trying to slow the driver ahead down a little bit, but perhaps not doing it where I would, or in the way that I would do it. Yep, definitely giving that barrier a wide berth. Yeah. Oh, okay, braked a little late on that one, but his line was better. He stayed straighter for longer. So, yeah, he was just defending the corner earlier on. Oh, on the grass. Interestingly, you know, it's a good opportunity to show something here. And this is not it's definitely not a dig at Lewis. Two different lines used here, and Lewis's may not have been intentional because they're just touching the grass there, right? But two slightly different lines, and I did see drivers using both lines throughout the race. Now, me personally, I used the line that SRI uses here because ultimately it is faster. It does kind of leave an appearance of the door being open, but you look at the gap now compared to the gap on the exit of the corner. So Lewis takes the tighter line, now has to make sure it doesn't run wide, and the gap on the exit of the corner is considerably larger than on entry to the corner, because the line that SRI took, that wider entry, allowed for usage of a higher gear, and the line that Lewis has taken has resulted in a tighter corner needing a lower gear. Oh, you know what? I think you'll be lucky to get this stopped, right? And the reason I say that is I'm pretty sure I just saw braking at 60 metres, right? Now, okay, he's on brand new tyres, right? He's on brand new tyres, so on this occasion he may get away with it. But as the tyres wear, you're not braking at 60 metres and making the corner. Okay, 75 metres ish. That's on the limit. You might get away with it once or twice, but like I say, as the tyres wear, yeah, he's running a little deep. He's had to go down to third. So although he's gained a little bit on SRI there, he's not going to be able to do that for multiple laps. The tyres won't allow it. Okay, braking early on this occasion, gets a much better entry. Takes the tighter exits. Not quite worked for him, but can't fault him for trying. Much better line through those two on this occasion, shown by the fact he's catching SRI. Oh, that's a wedge that's going to disappear. That was risky. Switchback maybe on. Yeah, not quite got the speed out of the corner. Got a bit of better speed than SRI. Okay, good wheel-to-wheel battle in here. Nicely done. Avoids understeering. Nicely done there. Okay, you know what? Braking right on top of the hill is on the limit. I'll be honest. I think as his tyres wear, might struggle a bit there. So there's a couple of braking zones at the moment where with new tyres is okay, but as the tyres wear, might struggle. Okay, braking early for this one. Like it. Nice. Gives Bunsell plenty of opportunity to realise that he's there. Got to be careful of this curb. It's nicely done. Good driving. Okay, now the move, he's going to go for it. Late on the brakes, he's going to be slow here though. So he's gone for the move up the inside, but now he's slow, and Silver Shadow comes right back past. Okay, interesting. Right, so yeah, it's Silver Shadow that's ahead of him. Okay, Silver Shadow takes the line that SRI did on the previous lap, right, and Lewis takes the line that he did, right, but he goes into the corner a bit quicker this time because he's actually wanting to try the overtake. Now the interesting thing here is that Lewis has to slow the car down considerably more. So I'm going to look at this from Lewis's view, and I'm thinking he goes down to second gear here. So yes, there is space to go for it, but at the same time it is much slower. Okay, he's in fourth, he's in third, he's running wide. Okay, he didn't get down to second. Had he gone down to second, he would have been able to keep the car a little bit tighter around the corner and go a little bit faster around the corner. Now, the interesting thing here is though, if I go on board with Silver Shadow, so Silver Shadow's approaching the corner, may be aware that the Lewis is there. Silver Shadow, yeah, taking the slightly wider entry, he's let Lewis go for the move, focused on the exit, and comfortably retaken the position. Again, I've got to say, Silver Shadow is a driver who I taught that manoeuvre to. So, although from Lewis's perspective you may have thought, yeah, okay, I'm going for the overtake, I've got the position, unfortunately, after the corner, he's lost the position. So, in reality, has he gained or has he lost? Well, I think he's about to lose another position, because SRI's there as well. So, now this is tricky. Also, okay, Silver Shadow, SRI on the right hand side, just near the 100 metre marker board. Lewis being in this position should be braking about the 100 metres to try and get the car slowed down for the corner. I think that may have been a bit past. Now, okay, he is up alongside those cars on the right at the moment, but this corner is now very, very tight for Lewis. This is a 90-degree corner pretty much, whereas if you look for SRI, he can see around the corner, Lewis can't. So that's I mean, the speed differences that those two cars can take through this corner are massive. Okay, trying to get it slowed down, hugs the inside. To be fair, he's navigated it well enough, just risky, but again, as his tyres wear, he's going to struggle to go for moves like that. Okay, not bad through turn one. Again, going for that first apex. The problem with going for the first apex is it does send you wider on the second apex, but again, with having a car behind you, he may be trying to cover that off. Okay, not going for the overtake, looks like he's defending. Mandalorian's off, gives him the room, nicely done. So interesting so far. I mean, definitely showing that he can drive, but I would say potentially pushing the braking zones a little bit too much for when the tyres begin to wear. Well, in a couple of the corners anyway, because what happens is, Now he's tried to get SGP out of shape there. It's worked a little bit, but because he's ended up taking the much tighter line, SRI's got a run on him. I mean, he could have been defending from SRI, and that's where, actually, let's go back and have a look, right? This is where, okay, if Lewis is defending SRI, right, well, Lewis lost time through the corner. So would Lewis have been better not defending, let SRI chuck it up the inside, and him lose the time through the corner, and Lewis do the switch back on it? Yeah, so Lewis could be defending there, which gives him the tighter line, and SRI gets the run on him. So it's tiny margins, but it's one of the reasons why sometimes there's not a problem with letting a car go for the attack. Like there, he's let them two go, they've ran a bit wide, now he's on the front foot. What I would say is, at this point already, I would be thinking, okay, the next corner is a potential overtaking corner, but if SRI goes for it, Lewis can't. Okay, SRI is going for the outside, which is the faster line, SGP on the inside. Lewis spots, yeah, the move is not on. Nicely done. Capitalise your own speed, yeah, that's good. Oh, okay, that's hinting towards... Oh, no. Okay. Right, let's have a look at this. Okay, so it looks like he braked at the about the 50-60 metre marker. Now, I kind of spotted at this point, I could tell what he was thinking. And what he was thinking was, on the last lap, he was able to make this move, right? And just about made it work. But as the tyres wear, this is what I'm saying, as the tyres begin to wear, if you're braking at the absolute limit, there's no margin for error. So let's take a look then. So SRI and SGP side by side. Lewis has got a little bit of a run on them, but being in this position, Lewis should be on the brakes before the other two, because he's got the tighter corner. 150, 100, SRI is on the brakes, because he's got a slightly tighter corner than SGP. SGP is now on the brakes. Lewis is now on the brakes at 55, 56, 60 metres. SGP would struggle to get round this corner, I think, braking at 60 metres from that side of the track. I've got to say, although yes, he's got a clear road ahead of him, I think Lewis has braked too late here. And what that will result in is having to brake extremely hard in a corner where those two on the right are actually braking quite gently. But because he's braking hard and trying to steer around a tighter corner, it's going to result in understeer, unless he can get the car fully slowed down, which on the previous lap his tyres would allow him to do. But at this point, he's trying to turn and the car's going straight. So the tyres aren't allowing him to the tyres aren't allowing him to do that manoeuvre. So let's have a look at his steering inputs here as well. So I mean, at this point, okay, fair enough, but braking earlier would have been better. And yeah, he's trying to turn and the car goes straight on. So unfortunately, I would say that Lewis has been caught out a little bit there by how much grip he had on the previous lap compared to how much grip he's now got. And this is one of the things that I've been teaching Fluffy, Gary, Rich Blues, Silver Shadow, and SRI and many of the others, that yeah, you might be able to brake later and harder, but you can only do it for a couple of laps. Because lap 3, 4, 5, 6, you can't do that. The car, you will either have to slow down so much more that you lose so much time, or you will not be able to get round the corner and you will lose a lot of time. Okay, and if you're braking very, very late, you're braking hard, you're hurting the tyres. If you're then introducing understeer as well, you're hurting the tyres. And then what happens is you can only get X amount of laps done or time done on your tyres. You then compare that to someone that isn't braking at the absolute maximum limit, but is braking that little bit earlier, braking that little bit gentler, making sure they hit the apex every single time, isn't hurting their tyres, isn't understeering and punishing their tyres, and as a result their lap times are then more consistent and can go for longer. So yes, okay, for 1 or 2 laps you might be really quick, but then from lap 3, 4, 5 you'll lose so much time compared to somebody else who's looked after the tyres a little more. So it's not necessarily just looking after the tyres, it's about having a consistent tyre to drive. Okay, so yeah, I do think Lewis braked a little bit late there on that one. So anyway, let's see how we get on. I mean, he's been battling with SRI for most of the race, braked a little bit late again, and again has had to go down to 3rd gear. I just thought maybe I should review me next. Don't go for the inside, don't go for the inside. Okay, SRI's covered that off. Okay, the reason I was saying there don't go for the inside is because what is kind of happening now is what was going to happen, right? I've mentioned a couple of times on Fluffy's footage and on Lewis's footage here that about like, oh, going for that first apex. Now the reason that I would not go for the first apex is once you're in here at this first apex, and okay, Gary, in all fairness, Gary's sticking his nose somewhere it doesn't belong. Gary, you naughty boy. By having such a tight apex here, it means to hit the apex on the next corner you have to lift more, and bear in mind as your tyres wear more you'd have to lift more and more. That means you're going slower, whereas if you take a wider entry into this corner, pretty much kind of ignore this apex, you can go considerably faster and hit the apex of the next corner, right, which results in going through the next corners faster as well. So because Lewis is tight on this apex, he's now tried to carry that speed through here, gets on the curb, which will result in a little bit of understeer on the exit here, just here. Now he's going to take a little bit too much curb here, but that's going to send him over to the right hand side of the track, and with where SRI is manoeuvring, teases Lewis to look up the inside. But this corner again, if you apex this corner too soon, you run wide on the exit of it. So it teases him to look up the inside here, but now the understeer's come in and it's going to get worse and worse. So now he's lost a bit of time. Now at this point the overtake's not on, and the reason I would say the overtake is not on, those couple of bits of understeer have just heated up those front tyres, right? Which means braking hard and late here is going to be risky. I'd hope he doesn't do that. Ooh. It's on the limit. It's on the limit. So, I wish I could just knock it back a tiny little bit. Because what I want to just point out here is what I was using as a braking point for the hairpin. And I used it every single lap, right? Okay, so the start of the curb on the right hand side is what I was using as a braking point, and it meant you make this corner every single time, no problem, even on worn tyres, right? Now it looks like SRI is kind of braking about there. Yeah, start the curb. Now Lewis is just on the brakes now, kind of at the start of the curb, but obviously he's in the middle of the road, so he's going to have a tighter corner. So as I slowly progress this forward, I would say at this moment in time a move up the inside is not necessarily on. Although it appears there is room there, you're not already alongside the car ahead. Now okay, as we get to this point he is closer, but SRI has already gone beyond the turn-in point. He is now turning in for the corner. Unfortunately, in my view, Lewis was a little bit too far back to really go for heading into trying to attack here. Now, because he's on the tighter line, I'll show you this once again actually. Because Lewis is on the tighter line, he's now got a very, very tight corner here, whereas you look at SRI's view, it's more open. I mean, on Lewis's view, you don't know Steve F1's down the road, but on SRI's, you can tell that you can see a hell of a lot more of the road, let's put it that way. So Lewis is going to have to slow the car down considerably more into this corner, and what that'll do is it will compromise his exit speed, and Formula Gary will probably capitalise on that. So yes, although Lewis has made the overtake there, it's, I wouldn't necessarily say too aggressive, I'd say risky, but it actually hasn't resulted in him benefiting a position, because although yeah, Lewis got past SRI, Formula Gary got past him, so Lewis was in the same position he was before the corner, and unfortunately now SRI has been able to get still a better exit, so now Lewis, after attempting to go for an overtake to gain 1 place on the exit of the corner, has lost 2 places. So sometimes, or a lot of the time, attacking on the way into a corner may seem very exciting, but if cars are coming back past you on the exit of a corner, it would beg the question, is it worth the attack? Or at least worth the attack from potentially a little bit too far back. I mean, one thing that I was teaching to Fluffy Planet and Formula Gary was, if you are not alongside at the start of the braking zone, you shouldn't really be looking for the overtake, because at that point of the braking point, if you're behind, it means you've got to do something extra to get past. And okay, yes, it can be done now and again, but if you wait until you're alongside, if you're side by side at the braking zone, you are already in a position where the other guy has to do something. He has to give you the room. There's no risk in that kind of manoeuvre. So this position here, for example, if I was in Lewis's car, I would not be looking at any kind of overtake up the inside. I might dummy the overtake and go back to the racing line, but already this is too far back, in my opinion, to go for the move, because he's nowhere near up alongside. Going later on the brakes, and now he's alongside, but what's happened is, at the braking point, or just before the braking point, SRI looks in his mirrors, sees Lewis is there, sees he's behind him. Now SRI gets to the braking point, brakes, turns in for the corner. All of a sudden, as he's getting towards the apex, now there's a car next to him that, before the braking point, he believed was too far back to really go for it. Now, if you're in Lewis's position here, it would be quite easy to go, well, look, he left the door open, the space was there, he's turned in on me. Well, in some respects, yes, but at the same time, you've given that driver zero opportunity to know that you are there, okay? So this is where respect comes from, and this is where DGT is very different from daily racers, definitely, in that if you are in what would be deemed as the right kind of positions, drivers will give you the space that you are fully deserved to, and that results in brilliant racing. However, that's Mandalorian. If you go wedging your car into places too late, it ends up in frustration. I mean, luckily SRI has spotted that Lewis is there, and interestingly, Lewis, there is a little bit of, I've gone too far back, there is a little bit of contact between the two of them. So I mean, this is a bit, I mean, that Lewis may not fully grasp with DGT at the moment, that being in this position now, I know SRI getting slipstream off Gary, Lewis is not in a position to capitalise, because that slipstream to SRI is going to be too strong for Lewis to fend off, basically. So that's why SRI slowly pulls away. So already at this point, Now, the move's not really on. Going for the late move, and unfortunately Lewis not quite able to get it slowed down enough. And why would that be? Because although his tyres aren't showing a massive amount of wear, they have been punished a little bit, which means he actually hasn't got as much grip as, say for example, the likes of I would have driving looking after them, or Fluffy looking after them. So as he gets into the corner now, he's still on the brakes, and he's still on the brakes at this point, and the contact happens. So I can't blame SRI for that bit of contact. Would I say that Lewis did anything wrong? I wouldn't call it wrong. I would just call it not the best of options, is perhaps the polite way to I would put it. Put his car into a situation where the gap was always going to close, and it's a big risk. And unfortunately, got a bit sideways, comes off worse, and now Fluffy Planet is sneaking past. Okay, so now Lewis in a tricky position. Been battling with the cars ahead, got the pack behind, some with much fresher tyres. Are we going to see Lewis try doing what he did on the previous lap? I don't think so. I think he may have learned. I mean, already at this point, potentially too far back. He's having a look. Okay, it's not on. Gone to the racing line. The others are defending. Okay, just look at this. Let's say, okay, so this is what we saw on Fluffy's footage earlier. So Fluffy's braking, what, 75 metres? Okay, so I can perhaps understand what happens here now, having watched some of Lewis's footage. So Lewis has been braking about 60 metres on fresh tyres and just about getting away with getting around the corner. But as those tyres are on sort of lap 3, 4, braking at 60 metres hasn't quite worked. So if Lewis now attempts to brake at 60 metres, he may feel that Fluffy Planet has braked well early. But in actual fact, Fluffy Planet has braked late. So as we progress it on, yeah, Fluffy Planet, he's realised he's braked late, which is why his brake lights are coming on considerably more. Lewis still hasn't hit the brakes yet. Now he's hit the brakes. So, although on the previous lap he braked at about 60 metres and understeered a bit into SGP, the lap before that braked at about 60 metres on the inside and just about made the corner. Now though, another lap on, tyres hurt a bit more, even being on the racing line, braking at 60 metres, I don't think it's going to make it. Not without slowing down a considerable amount. But unfortunately, he's hit the brakes, gone straight on, and tagged the back of Fluffy. So, I mean, that's one where Fluffy braked just too late and just about had a margin for error, but Lewis has been caught in that trap of the grip of the fresh tyres and then how those tyres behave when they start wearing. Taking a tight line into the hairpin again. Was he defending? No, not defending. Interesting. I mean, what I would say there is, again, yeah, look to the inside, right, to see if the car ahead will defend it, then move back to the racing line. So, fucking wrong button. Sorry. Yeah, so look to go for the inside, right, if you're too far back to go for the move. But then go back to the racing line. Open the corner up for yourself. Otherwise, you'll just lose time through the apex. So, at this point, too far back to go for the move. Go over to the racing line. That way, you don't have to slow down as much through the corner. So yeah, I mean, even at this point, the speed that SRI can go through this corner is potentially greater than the speed that Lewis can take through this corner, because Lewis isn't using all of the road. Now, as I said at the start of this video, Lewis, if you're watching, don't take any of this as personal digs or anything like that. It's just stuff that could give you better tyre wear, faster lap times, better racing, more enjoyable racing, and things like that. So, and if you want to know my history, just ask Gary or Fluffy. Okay, so although Lewis has got the slipstream here and may gain by the end of the straight, he could have already been right up at SRI's bumper had he gone to the racing line and gone for the fastest possible exit out of the corner. SRI's got himself out of shape, and you know what? Fair play to Lewis. He saw it and he reacted and he avoided it. I like that. Just see his car. It may just be because he's on a pad, but it almost looked like his car was twitching to go, should I go for the inside? Should I go for the inside? Watch as he comes up the hill. Get ready for it. Okay, I'm going in a straight line. Should I go for the inside? Should I go for the inside? No. Good decision not to. Braked a little late though. Easily done, especially as the tyres wear. Easily done, unfortunately. Big crash behind. Rich Blues now behind Lewis. So there's definitely some good bits to Lewis's driving here. He definitely seems to have a bit of awareness. Oh, caught out watching Rich Blues there. Easily done. Yeah, I mean, it looks like he's definitely got the concept to, well, obviously racing lines. Well, I do think it's potentially sort of caught in the that trap of braking at the last physical possible point. He is narrowing a couple of corner entries as well, making corners tighter, a little tighter for himself than he needs. Okay, interesting. Okay, so this will be the first lap then that Lewis is approaching this corner all on his own on this particular set of tyres, which have been used quite a bit. So it'll be interesting to see at what point Lewis brakes here, because as I said, me personally, I'm braking for this corner about 100 metres every lap, very gentle braking, taking it in fourth gear pretty damn fast. Not as quick as Jason, admittedly, but pretty quick, right? So by braking that 40 metres earlier, looks after your tyres and allows you to go through the corner faster. Okay, so let's see where Lewis tries braking on this occasion. 100 metres. Okay, so he has brought the braking point earlier, but it is at what, 75 metres. But because he's braking at 75 metres, even though he's braking earlier than he was before, he's still going to have to drop it down to third gear to make the corner. But even dropping it down to third gear, the front tyres have no longer got the grip to make the corner. So as he gets on the power, the car's going straight on into the barrier. So that there is kind of a knock-on effect, and I can understand why after that he's gone, you know what, I'm going into the pits, my tyres are fucked, right? And I can fully understand him being in that mindset. Unfortunately, I mean, if we look at, okay, the level of tyre wear that Lewis has got, okay, the front left could have double the amount of wear on it, the front right, a bit less than double the amount of wear, the rear left, more than double the amount of wear, and the rear right, wouldn't do many more laps, admittedly. But the rear tyres aren't a massive problem in these cars. But again, that comes down to braking late, slowing down, having to slow down too much, carrying too much speed into a corner and scrubbing the tyres mid-corner. Okay, so into the pits Lewis goes. But, I mean, it's interesting. It'd be very easy as a driver to have been in those battles on the previous laps and then on that occasion get to that corner, brake earlier than you normally would, and then wonder what the fuck's going on when you don't make the corner. Now, obviously, there are a number of factors involved. One is there is a little bit of boost in these cars, and there also is the tyre wear. You cannot simulate being in the battle. Bloody hell, does everybody want a review? Mental Mando asking for a review? No. I've got to have dinner at some point today. I wanted to do some driving today. But anyway. I mean, this is not a feature I intend on continuing to do. I'm just doing it out of interest. I should have said, no, James, I'm not doing it. I don't want to upset you. Oh, SGP with a bit of a risque move. But to be fair, Lewis saw it coming. Interesting. Lewis is taking some odd lines round corners on occasion, is what I would say. Okay, maybe odd's the wrong. Oh, that's late. That's late. What happened there? Oh yeah, missed the braking point. Easily done. We've all done that in practice. So easily done. So yeah, I can understand how he's missed his braking point there. Oh, okay, I think this is the point where Lewis, yeah, this is the point that Lewis retires from the race with his shoulder injury. Okay, very interesting in that I know the likes of, I've mentioned the names before, Fluffy Gary, Formula Gary, Fluffy Planet, Dave the Harb, Steve F1, Jason. A lot of them have had to work on not braking at that last physical possible point and just about making the corner. Right? For a qualifying lap, don't get me wrong, that can work, but for a race laps, it'll only work for a couple of laps, right? And then the tyres degrade and it's a vicious triangle. So what I would say is a lot of Lewis's driving there wasn't not bad at all. But there were a few occasions where I would say definitely put his car into a position that wasn't necessarily great, and going for those late braking moves, or what he would think perhaps is a normal braking move and everyone else is braking early. In actual fact, I mean, okay, I do know that one of the bits that I saw on Lewis's stream was the one where he hit the back of Fluffy. And so I think on Lewis's stream he said there was nothing I could do there, he braked well early. Okay, compared to where you were braking, yes, Fluffy braked early, but as was shown on like the 3 laps that I showed, the first lap, the first time you just about got away with it, right, braking at 60 metres. The second time, not so much, because a bit of understeer came in, little contact with the car. The third time, the car ahead of you braked at 75 metres, which turned out to be too late a braking point for that car, and you then tried to brake at about 60 metres and unfortunately hit the back of Fluffy Planet. Now the interesting thing there is that with the next lap where Lewis was on his own going into that corner, tried braking 65 metres ish, so earlier than he perhaps would have braked on previous laps, and still couldn't make the corner because the tyres couldn't cope with it. So that's why the likes of Fluffy on the previous lap, although yes it looked like he had braked early, had actually braked late because he was braking earlier and constantly making the corner at a higher speed, rather than braking late, making it on 1 or 2 laps and then suffering on all of his other laps. So very interesting. Let's see, Steve SGP says, my advice for the next race would be try to overtake on the exit of a corner, not the entry. See how it changes your tyre wear. Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, what I would say definitely as well is if you're going for overtakes into corners and the car you were overtaking overtakes you on the exit of the corner, it means that they've been able to carry a lot more speed than you through the corner, right? Which means the way that you have gone into the corner wasn't the right way to do it. So you'd be better off trying to get the car ahead to defend, get them out of position, make them be slow, and you take the faster line. So yeah, look at trying to make overtakes on exits of corners rather than entries. It works so much better. I mean, that is something that has definitely worked for Fluffy Planet, for certain. Now, interestingly, right, I think I might just randomly go on board for a lap with Jason, right? Jason, obviously, race winner. How worn are his tyres? No, they're not bad. Okay, so the amount of wear that Jason has got on his tyres at the moment is not that dissimilar to the amount of wear that Lewis had when he pitted. Okay, now I've no idea how Jason. I've not looked at any of Jason's laps, so I've no idea what this will be like. But when you look at his lap times on the right-hand side, 2086, 2087, 2087, 2097, maybe a mistake there. Then pits, 2088, 2084, 2086. Consistency. So that would suggest to me that on this particular lap, he's either going to go into the pits, or his lap time is probably going to be about a 209. So let's just watch it and see how he gets on. Braking at the 100, runs a little bit wide, but carries fourth gear through the corner. So misses the first apex to maximise the second apex. Little lifts in the right places. Late apex, big lift there. Brakes at the start of the curb, third gear. Comfortably through the hairpin. So maximising the track, using all of the road, allowing him to take the corner, the hairpin in third instead of second. Not rushing on his downshifts, calm on his acceleration. Where's he brake here? Just before the crest of the hill. Fully in control. Brakes before the end of the bridge. Holds third gear through the corner. Nicely done. Brakes at the start of the curb, takes that wider entry, apex late, carries third gear, runs a little bit wide though, but it'll still be a decent lap time. Over to the right hand side, braking at 100, a bit after, misses the apex a bit, so yeah, if it had braked at 100 it'd have been on the apex, but that's going to be a 209 I think, yeah, a 2096. Okay, so a very different style from Lewis to how Jason was driving that. And to be fair, Jason was driving that very similar to how I was driving it, and it does allow for consistency. I mean, looking at that, Jason's consistency better than mine. I mean, I'm not doing this to be harsh. Let's have a. I mean, well, actually, it would be a bit unfair because Lewis did have a few spins in that race. So looking at consistency is a little bit unfair. But driving how Jason did allows him to be quick, look after the tyres, and he's able to consistently do similar lap times. Also, SGP mentioned, I wasn't looking at his braking, but SGP mentions that Jason is only half braking, no more. And that is it is a big factor, as I mentioned earlier on. That you can brake a little bit earlier and brake a lot less and have the car slow down a lot better, more under control, and actually go through a corner faster. Anyway, that's it. I'm done for the reviews today. You can all bugger off. I'm hungry. So... What are you on about, Steve? Have ability a look? You what? SGP's talking fucking nonsense today. Yeah, so that is me done for reviews for today. It's not a feature I plan on doing a lot of. Oh, he wants me to have a look at Jason's braking. Oh dear. Alright then. So this is, I think this is the same lap again. So looking at how much Jason brakes then. Yep, less than 50%. So by not braking hard, he's not hurting the tyres. Okay, he missed the apex a bit, but he hasn't hurt the tyres in any way. Into the hairpin, touch over 50 and then off them, so not having to use the brakes a lot at all, and it just allows for a much higher speed through corners and better stability. Now obviously it is easier on a wheel, and Jason is using a wheel, it is easier on a wheel and pedals to do half braking compared to on a pad. That is definitely for certain. Half brake again. And the thing with the way that Jason's brake, I mean, it is very similar to how I brake. It means that your ABS never has to kick in. So if your ABS is kicking in, it's because you're locking up the front tyres, basically. If you're locking up the front tyres and your ABS is kicking in, you're scrubbing your front tyres, which means it's tyre wear. So interestingly, I mean, I didn't look at how much brake Jason used into the final corner, but I'm guessing it's still going to be about 50%. Got on the throttle a bit too soon for that one. So as we know, he brakes just after the 100, but a tiny amount of brake, and comfortably makes the corner in 4th gear, much higher speed, no tyre wear pretty much added to his tyres. So that's a direct effect of what braking that little bit earlier can do for you. You brake less, your tyre wears less, you go through corners faster. So that's why on occasion it might look like people are braking early or leaving a door wide open, but that's not actually the case. Anyway, it's been an interesting one, and hopefully if Lewis watches this, may be able to take a few of the things that have been mentioned there and put them into practice, because you've only got to look or ask Formula Gary, Fluffy Planet, and Rich Blues, the benefits of those kind of things and what it has. Anyway, that's it for the reviews today. Finally, I'm going to be done. I'm going to go. Have a good weekend, everybody, and I shall see you later.